The Golden Ticket, a comedy of errors and redemption. Chapter 1. The Birthday Gift. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. The off-key singing mercifully ended as Zack Winters forced a smile at his family gathered around the kitchen table of his cramped Brooklyn apartment. His mother, Judith, a yoga instructor who had recently discovered TikTok and now insisted everyone call her Juju, adjusted her crystal necklace before pushing a homemade gluten-free cake toward him. 35, she sighed dramatically. I was running my own studio and had completed 3 silent retreats by your age. Zack's father, Frank, a retired accountant who spent most of his retirement managing his fantasy football leagues with military precision, glanced up from his phone. Blow out the candles before they set off the smoke detector again. Your superintendent still gives me dirty looks from last year. Zack obliged, extinguishing the 3 candles. His mother believed more would release harmful toxins, with one half-hearted puff. His sister Alicia, 2 years younger but somehow already a senior partner at her law firm, slid an envelope across the table with perfectly manicured nails. From Mom and Dad, she said with a smirk that suggested she knew exactly what was inside. Zack opened it to find a single lottery ticket and a card featuring a cartoon turtle wearing a party hat. Inside, his father's cramped handwriting. Maybe this will finally be your lucky break. Love, Mom and Dad. A lottery ticket? Zack tried to keep the disappointment from his voice. Last year, they'd given him a subscription to a career coaching service. We thought it would be fun, his mother chirped, adjusting her jade earrings. Plus, the odds of winning the lottery are probably better than the odds of making it big as a... She paused, genuinely struggling to remember. Podcast producer? Is that still what you're doing? I'm a true crime documentary filmmaker, Zack corrected for what felt like the 1,000th time. And I just got shortlisted for the Brooklyn Independent Film Festival. That's nice, honey, his mother said absently while checking her phone. Oh, Brenda's son just bought a condo in Manhattan. Did you know he invented an app that tells you when your plants need watering? Made 7 figures in the first year. Frank nodded sagely. Smart kid. Always had his head on straight. Alicia chimed in. Speaking of real estate, I just closed on that vacation property in the Hamptons. You should all come out this summer. She turned to Zack. You could even bring someone, if you're seeing anyone. The implied, which you probably aren't, hung in the air. Zack stared at the lottery ticket. Mega Millions. $350 million jackpot. Thanks for the cake and the, potential fortune. I should probably get going. I have an editing session tonight. On your birthday? His mother frowned. Can't you reschedule? Deadlines? Zack shrugged. It wasn't entirely a lie. He did have work to do, though nothing that couldn't wait. He just couldn't bear another minute of Alicia's humble bragging or his parents' thinly veiled disappointment. After hustling his family out with promises to call more often and maybe, just maybe, look into real jobs that his father's golf buddies company was offering, Zack collapsed onto his second-hand couch. His apartment, a 4th-floor walk-up in Bushwick, was filled with film equipment, books on true crime, and half a dozen houseplants, none of which had apps monitoring their hydration needs. The lottery ticket sat on his coffee table, practically mocking him. 35 years old, living paycheck to paycheck, pursuing a passion that his family considered slightly more respectable than professional juggling. What the hell, he muttered, grabbing a pen to scratch off the numbers. At least I can tell them I tried. He absent-mindedly scratched while scrolling through streaming services on his TV. First row of numbers. Nothing. Second row. Nothing. Third row. Zack sat up so quickly he knocked over a half-empty coffee mug. "No way," he whispered, frantically checking the winning combinations again and again. "No fucking way." The ticket matched. All of it. According to the fine print, if these numbers were correct, he'd just won the jackpot. $350 million. Or about $180 million after taxes. His first instinct was to call his parents. To see their faces when they realized their joke gift, their annual reminder of his perceived inadequacy, had transformed him into a multimillionaire overnight. Instead, he set the ticket down carefully and paced his apartment. Frank and Judith would find a way to take credit. They'd pretend they always believed in him. They'd have sudden opinions about how he should spend their money. His phone buzzed with a text from Alicia. "Hope you enjoyed your editing session. Mom wanted me to remind you that her birthday is next month. Maybe you could actually get her something nice this year." Zack stared at the message, then at the ticket, and made a decision that would change everything. Chapter 2. The Scheme. The next morning, Zack called his best friend and fellow filmmaker, Maya Chin. "I need you to come over." Don't ask questions. Just come," he said the moment she answered. 20 minutes later, Maya, a fast-talking woman with purple-streaked hair and more energy than should be legally allowed before noon, was sitting on his couch, staring at the lottery ticket he'd placed in a plastic sandwich bag. "Holy shit," she whispered. "Holy shit. I know. This is real? You actually won." "I checked the numbers 15 times. It's real." Maya looked up at him, her eyes wide. "So why aren't you popping champagne or buying an island or whatever lottery winners do?" Zack ran a hand through his hair. "Because of how I got the ticket. My parents gave it to me as a birthday gift, along with their usual, subtle reminders that I'm a disappointment." "Ah," Maya nodded, understanding immediately. She'd heard enough stories about the Winters family over their 7 years of friendship. "And now you don't want to tell them?" "Not yet," Zack clarified. "I want to tell them, but on my terms. When I'm ready." "And when will that be?" Zack grinned, a plan forming. "After I make the documentary I've always wanted to make." Maya raised an eyebrow. "I'm intrigued but also concerned." Over the next hour, Zack outlined his plan. He would claim the lottery winnings anonymously, thankfully, New York allowed that, and set up a production company. He'd fund his dream project, a documentary series he'd been conceptualizing for years about everyday heroes who changed their communities without recognition. And when it was complete and successful, he'd reveal everything to his family. "So you're basically going to use your lottery money to prove you would have made it as a filmmaker anyway?" Maya asked skeptically. "Sort of," Zack admitted. "But it's more than that. I want to make something meaningful. Something that matters. And yes, when my family finally sees it and loves it, it will be incredibly satisfying to tell them it was funded by their joke gift." Maya considered this. You know, most people would just buy a yacht and tell their parents to shove it. "I'm not most people." "Clearly." She sighed. "All right, I'm in. But we're doing this properly. First, we need a lawyer. A good one, not your sister. Definitely not my sister. Second, we need a financial advisor. And third, we need to secure that ticket before you lose it or your apartment catches fire or something equally disastrous happens." Zack nodded, feeling more excited than he had in years. "Let's do this." The next 2 weeks were a blur of meetings with attorneys, financial advisors, and lottery officials. Zack established an anonymous LLC to claim the prize, followed every legal protocol to maintain his privacy, and set up a comprehensive financial plan that would allow him to live comfortably while funding his production company. Throughout this process, his parents called several times, each conversation more transparent than the last. "Zack, honey," his mother said one evening, her voice overly casual, "did you ever scratch off that lottery ticket we gave you?" His heart raced. "Yeah, nothing. Thanks anyway." "Oh," the disappointment in her voice was palpable. "It's just, there was a big winner from a ticket sold at that convenience store. Wouldn't it be something if it was yours?" "That would be something," Zack agreed, suppressing a laugh. "How's Dad's fantasy football team doing?" But his parents weren't easily deterred. A few days later, his father called. "Son," he began without preamble, "that lottery ticket we gave you, you're absolutely sure you checked the numbers correctly?" "Pretty sure, Dad." "Why?" "Well," Frank cleared his throat, "your mother and I were thinking. If by some cosmic chance it was a winner and you just didn't realize. I think I'd notice if I won the jackpot, Dad." Right. "Of course." The pause. "You wouldn't happen to still have the ticket, would you? Just to double check." "Sorry, threw it away." Another pause, longer this time. "That's unfortunate." After hanging up, Zack called Maya. "They know," he said. "Or at least they suspect." "Of course they do," Maya replied. "The convenience store probably told them they sold the winning ticket that day. Your dad's probably kicking himself for not keeping the receipt." Zack laughed, but there was something bittersweet about the whole situation. Here were his parents, suddenly interested in his life because they thought he might have money. Not because of his accomplishments or his character, but because of pure luck. It only strengthened his resolve to see his plan through. Chapter 3. The documentary. 3 months later, Golden Horizon Productions was officially in business. Zack had assembled a small but talented team, including Maya as co-producer, and they were ready to begin filming their documentary series, Unseen Heroes. The concept was simple but powerful. Find ordinary people doing extraordinary things without recognition or reward. The mail carrier who checked on elderly residents during the pandemic. The night janitor who left encouraging notes for stressed office workers. The retired teacher who created a free tutoring program in his garage. These were the stories Zack had always wanted to tell. Stories that reminded people of the good in the world, that inspired without preaching. Their first subject was Eleanor Washington, a 72-year-old former nurse who had converted her modest home in Queens into an unofficial community center for neighborhood kids. For 15 years, she'd provided after-school supervision, homework help, hot meals, and mentorship, all funded from her pension and occasional donations. When Zack and Maya arrived to interview her, they found a small house bursting with energy. A dozen children of various ages were engaged in different activities, reading, playing board games, working on art projects, while Eleanor moved among them with the grace and authority of someone half her age. "I don't understand why you want to film little old me," she said as she served them homemade lemonade. "I'm not doing anything special." "That's exactly why we're here," Zack explained. "Because you don't think what you're doing is special, but it is. It's changing lives." Over the next week, they documented Eleanor's routine, interviewed children and parents who had benefited from her generosity, and captured the unique atmosphere of safety and possibility she had created. One evening, as they were packing up equipment, Eleanor pulled Zack aside. "You have a good heart," she said matter-of-factly. "But you're carrying something heavy. I can tell." Zack was startled by her perception. "What makes you say that?" 30 years of nursing and 15 years of watching children grow up. You learn to read people. She patted his hand. Whatever it is, don't let it dim your light. You're doing good work here. That night, Zack called his parents. Not to reveal his secret, but just to check in. To his surprise, they seemed genuinely interested in his new project, until they realized he wasn't going to share details about how he was funding it. It just seems suspicious, his mother said. Suddenly you have money for a full production. Are you in some kind of trouble, Zack? You know you can tell us. I'm not in trouble, Mom. I got investors who believe in the project. What investors? Who would invest in? She caught herself. I mean, that's wonderful, honey. We're just concerned, that's all. After hanging up, Zack felt both frustrated and more determined than ever. He threw himself into the documentary with renewed energy. Over the next 6 months, Unseen Heroes profiled 7 remarkable individuals across New York City. A former gang member who now ran conflict resolution workshops in schools. A woman who had created a mobile laundry service for the homeless. A teenager who designed prosthetic limbs using a 3D printer he'd built himself. With each story, the project evolved into something more powerful than Zack had initially envisioned. The subjects weren't just inspiring, they were transformative, both for their communities and for the filmmakers documenting them. Maya noticed the change in Zack first. You're different, she said one night as they reviewed footage. Less angry. I wasn't angry, Zack protested. Yes, you were. You were going to make this documentary to prove something to your family. To say, screw you, I am talented. But now you're making it because you believe in it. Zack couldn't argue with that. The project had become about something much bigger than his family drama. It had become about connection, about recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary, about the quiet heroes who never made headlines but made all the difference. The lottery ticket that had started it all seemed increasingly irrelevant. Until his sister called. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. We need to talk, Alicia said, her lawyer voice in full effect. In person. Tomorrow. Your place. Before Zack could respond, she hung up. He immediately called Maya. My sister's coming over tomorrow. She sounds serious. Do you think she found out about the lottery? I don't know how she could have. We were careful. Lawyers have ways, Maya said ominously. Want me to be there as backup? Zack considered it. No, I think I need to handle this myself. But stay on standby. The next day, Alicia arrived at his apartment looking every inch the power attorney in her tailored suit and impossibly high heels. She surveyed his living space with the same critical eye she probably used to assess crime scenes. Your apartment looks different, she said, noting the new furniture and film equipment. Nicer. I told you I got funding for my documentary. Have a seat. Want something to drink? Cut the crap, Zack. She placed her designer handbag on his coffee table and fixed him with a stare that had probably made corporate executives confess to securities fraud. I know about the lottery ticket. Zack's heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral. What about it? I know you won. And I know you lied to Mom and Dad about it. How would you know that? Alicia sighed, suddenly looking less like a shark and more like his little sister. Because I'm not an idiot. Because the timing of your sudden investment funding coincided perfectly with the lottery win. Because you got a new espresso machine and you've been wearing shirts that actually fit. But mostly because I ran into your friend Maya at that coffee shop near your old editing studio, and she was on the phone talking about lottery money and Zack's parents. She didn't see me. Zack made a mental note to have a serious conversation with Maya about public phone calls. Fine, he admitted, seeing no point in further denial. I won. So what? So what? Alicia's voice rose. You won millions of dollars from a ticket our parents gave you, and you didn't tell them. Do you have any idea how hurt they'll be when they find out? When? Are you planning to tell them? Alicia's expression softened slightly. I'm not going to tell them. But you should. He shook his head. You don't understand. That ticket wasn't a thoughtful gift. It was a joke at my expense. Another reminder that they think I'm a failure. They don't think you're a failure, Alicia protested, though without much conviction. Really? Mom compares me to every successful child of every friend she's ever had. Dad still sends me job listings for accounting firms. And you? He stopped himself. And me what? She challenged. And you've never once stood up for me. You've been complicit in their narrative that I'm some kind of disappointment because I chose to pursue something I'm passionate about instead of something lucrative. Alicia was quiet for a moment. That's not fair, she finally said, but there was a question in her voice. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my work? Not to be polite, but because you were genuinely interested. She stopped, realizing she had no answer. Zack sighed, his anger dissipating. Look, I'm not keeping the money a secret to be spiteful. I'm using it to make something meaningful. Something important. And yes, when it's done, I plan to tell them everything. The documentary, Alicia said, understanding dawning. That's what this is about. It started that way, Zack admitted. I wanted to prove I could succeed on my own terms. But it's become something more now. Something I'm really proud of. Alicia looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Show me. What? Show me what you've been working on. Show me why this matters so much to you. Surprised but grateful, Zack set up his laptop and played the rough cut of their first 3 episodes. Alicia watched in silence, her expression unreadable. When the footage ended, she didn't speak immediately. Then quietly, It's beautiful, Zack. It's really beautiful. Thank you, he said, genuinely touched by her rare approval. Our parents should see this, she continued. Not because it was funded by the lottery money, but because it's good. Because you're good at what you do. Before Zack could respond, his phone rang. It was his mother. I have to take this, he said, stepping into the kitchen. Hey, what's up? Zack, your father and I have been thinking. We'd like to come visit this weekend. See your new project. It's been ages since we've been to New York. He nearly dropped the phone. In the living room, Alicia was suddenly very interested in examining her manicure. Did Alicia put you up to this? He whispered, covering the mouthpiece. This weekend? He said into the phone. That's kind of short notice. We can stay at a hotel, his mother assured him. We just want to see what you're working on. Is that so strange? Yes, it was strange. In 15 years of living in New York, his parents had visited exactly 3 times. Once when he graduated from film school, once when Alicia passed the bar exam, and once when they were on their way to a cruise and had a long layover. No, it's not strange, he lied. This weekend would be great. After hanging up, he turned to his sister. You called them? Alicia shrugged. Maybe they should see what their son is capable of. Maybe we all should. Chapter 5. The screening. The weekend arrived with the subtlety of a Broadway musical. Judith and Frank descended upon New York with matching luggage and enough opinions about the city's changes since their last visit to fill a guidebook. Everything's so expensive now, Frank complained as they settled into a corner booth at the restaurant Zack had chosen for dinner. $15 for a cocktail? Highway robbery. Judith nodded vigorously. And did you see that man on the subway platform? The one with the parakeet on his shoulder? Just letting it fly around. In my day, we had health standards. Zack caught Alicia's eye across the table, and for the first time in years, they shared a moment of sibling solidarity in the face of their parents' eccentricities. Surprisingly, once the initial complaints subsided, dinner went well. His parents asked genuine questions about his documentary, and Zack found himself speaking passionately about the project and the remarkable people they'd filmed. "It sounds interesting, honey," his mother said, and for once, she seemed sincere. "I always said you had a good eye for people." "You did." Zack couldn't recall her ever saying anything of the sort. "Of course. Remember when you were 10 and you befriended that new boy in school? The one everyone else avoided because he was so quiet? And he turned out to be quite the piano prodigy." Zack did remember. He also remembered his mother being initially upset that he was hanging out with that strange boy until she learned his father was a surgeon. "Anyway," Judith continued, "we're looking forward to seeing your film tomorrow." The next day, Zack arranged a small screening room at a local independent theater where he had connections. He invited Maya and a few other members of his team, wanting his parents to see that this was a real, professional project. As everyone took their seats, Zack felt suddenly nervous. Despite everything, despite the years of disappointment and miscommunication, he found himself desperately wanting his parents to like his work. "Before we start," he said, standing at the front of the room, "I want to thank you all for coming. This project is still a work in progress, but it's very close to my heart. It's about people who make a difference without recognition or reward. People who remind us of our humanity." He caught Maya's encouraging nod and Alicia's subtle thumbs up. "Anyway, enough talk. Here's Unseen Heroes." The lights dimmed and the film began. For the next 2 hours, the room was silent except for the occasional laugh or sniffle in response to the stories unfolding on screen. Zack tried not to watch his parents, focusing instead on technical aspects he might still need to adjust. But he couldn't help glancing over occasionally, trying to gauge their reactions. His father sat perfectly still, his face impassive. His mother dabbed at her eyes several times with a tissue. When the final credits rolled and the lights came up, there was a moment of profound silence before the small audience broke into enthusiastic applause. Maya was the first to speak. "I've seen this 100 times during editing and it still gets me." Others chimed in with praise and specific feedback. Zack thanked them all, but his attention was fixed on his parents, who hadn't yet said a word. Finally, his father cleared his throat. "That was not what I expected." Zack's heart sank. "Oh, it was better," Frank continued, his voice gruff with emotion. "Much better. Those people you filmed, they're the real deal." "They are," Zack agreed, surprised by his father's response. "The nursing home janitor," his mother added, "the one who organizes the dance nights for the residents with dementia. That reminded me of my father, your grandfather. Music was the only thing that reached him near the end." Zack moved closer to his parents, touched by their genuine reactions. "So you liked it?" "Liked it?" His mother looked almost offended. "Zachary, we loved it. It's important work you're doing. How did you ever get funding for something so heartfelt?" The moment had arrived sooner than he'd planned. Zack looked at Alicia, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Actually," he said, taking a deep breath, "that's something I need to talk to you both about. Privately." Chapter 6. The Truth. After the others had left, Zack sat with his parents and Alicia in the now empty screening room. His mother looked concerned, clearly expecting bad news. "Are you in some kind of trouble, honey?" she asked. "Is that why you got so much money so suddenly?" "I'm not in trouble, Mom," Zack assured her. "It's about the lottery ticket you gave me for my birthday." His parents exchanged a glance. His father shifted uncomfortably. What about it? It won, Zack said simply. It won the jackpot. The silence that followed was absolute. His mother's mouth opened and closed several times without producing sound. His father turned an alarming shade of red. That's not funny, Zachary, his mother finally managed. I'm not joking, Zack replied. The ticket you gave me won $350 million. After taxes, about $180 million. His father's voice was dangerously calm. And you didn't tell us. No, I didn't. Why? His mother demanded, her voice rising. How could you keep something like that from us? We're your parents. Because of how you gave it to me, Zack said evenly. It wasn't a gift, it was a joke at my expense. Another way to remind me that you think I'm wasting my life. That's not, his father began, but Alicia cut him off. It was exactly that, Dad, she said firmly. Let's not pretend. We've all treated Zack like he was making a mistake by pursuing filmmaking. I'm guilty of it too. Their parents looked stunned by this united front. We never meant, his mother started again. I think you did, Zack said, not unkindly. But that's not actually the point anymore. The point is what I did with the money. He explained how he had established the production company, funded the documentary series, and hired a talented team. How what had started as a way to prove something had evolved into a genuine mission to highlight extraordinary ordinary people. The lottery win gave me the freedom to make the film I've always wanted to make, he concluded. But more importantly, it helped me understand what actually matters to me. It's not proving you wrong or making millions, it's telling stories that mean something. His parents sat in silence for a long moment, processing this information. I don't understand, his father finally said. If the money isn't important to you, why not tell us you won? Because I needed to do this on my own terms, Zack explained. Without your opinions or judgments or suggestions. Without feeling like I had to justify my choices. His mother looked hurt. Have we really been that terrible? Not terrible, Zack corrected. Just disconnected from who I actually am and what actually matters to me. And now, his father asked, what happens now that we know? Zack smiled. Now we celebrate the film's success. It's been accepted at 3 major festivals, and we've had interest from streaming platforms. And maybe, if you're interested, you could actually get to know what I do. Who I am. His parents exchanged another look, but this one was different, uncertain, almost vulnerable. We'd like that, his mother said softly. We'd like that very much. Chapter 7. The Perspective. 6 months later, Unseen Heroes premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival to critical acclaim. Seated in the audience were Frank and Judith Winters, alongside Alicia, Maya, and several of the documentary subjects, including Eleanor Washington, who had become something of a surrogate grandmother to Zack. As Zack took the stage for a Q&A after the screening, he spotted his father wiping away a tear, something he would have considered impossible a year ago. The series was quickly picked up by a major streaming platform, bringing the stories of these remarkable individuals to millions of viewers worldwide. Letters and emails poured in from people inspired to start their own community initiatives or to recognize the unseen heroes in their own lives. Zack's relationship with his parents transformed gradually but significantly. They still occasionally slipped into old patterns. His mother still sent him articles about successful people he should network with, and his father still worried about his financial security despite the lottery winnings. But there was a new foundation of respect underlying their interactions. One evening, as they all gathered for dinner at Alicia's new, slightly smaller, more tasteful apartment, Frank raised his glass in a toast. "To my son, the filmmaker," he said with genuine pride, "who taught me that success isn't measured by the size of your bank account, but by the lives you touch." Judith added, "And to second chances. For all of us." Zack clinked glasses with his family, marveling at how much had changed. The lottery ticket that was meant as a subtle insult had become the catalyst for genuine connection. Later that night, as he helped clear the dishes, his father approached him privately. "I've been thinking about that lottery ticket," Frank said, his voice low. "What are the odds, right? Millions to one." "I know," Zack agreed. "Incredible luck." "Maybe," his father said thoughtfully, "or maybe the universe has a sense of humor, giving you exactly what you needed to show us exactly what we were missing." Zack considered this unexpected philosophical turn from his usually pragmatic father. "That's pretty profound, Dad." Frank shrugged. "I've been listening to your mother's meditation podcasts." "Don't tell her." They shared a laugh, and in that moment, Zack felt a sense of peace he hadn't known was possible with his family. The next day, he received a call from Eleanor Washington. "I just got stopped at the grocery store," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "Someone recognized me from your documentary. Said I inspired her to start an after-school program at her church." "That's amazing," Zack said, genuinely delighted. "No, young man, what you did is amazing. You took something that could have made you bitter and turned it into a blessing for others." There was a smile in her voice. "That's a rare gift." After they hung up, Zack sat in his office. A proper office now, though still filled with books and plants, and reflected on the strange journey of the past year. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a framed object, the original lottery ticket, preserved behind glass. Not as a reminder of his windfall, but as a reminder of how unpredictable life could be. How sometimes the things that hurt us most can, with the right perspective, become the things that heal us. On impulse, he called his mother. "Mom, I was thinking about starting a new project. A documentary about families reconnecting across different values and life choices. Would you and Dad be interested in being part of it?" Her response was immediate and enthusiastic. "We'd be honored, honey. As long as I can mention my TikTok channel. I'm up to 5,000 followers now." Zack laughed. Some things would never change entirely. But that was okay. They were all works in progress, finding their way toward understanding each other a little better each day. And that, he realized, was the real jackpot. One year to the day after Zack's fateful birthday, the Winters family gathered again, this time in his new loft in Brooklyn, a space filled with light and art and equipment for his growing production company. As his mother fussed with the organic, gluten-free cupcakes she'd brought, now accepting that her son actually preferred regular cake but making peace with it, Zack handed out small gift bags to everyone. "What's this?" Alicia asked, pulling out a lottery ticket with a ribbon tied around it. "Just a little birthday tradition I thought we might start," Zack explained with a grin. His father laughed, understanding the joke. "Should we scratch them now?" "Absolutely," Zack encouraged. They all dutifully scratched their tickets, finding, as expected, that none of them had won anything significant. "Well, I got $5, his mother announced proudly. "I think I'll put it toward my next silent retreat." "My ticket says, 'Try again,'" Alicia read. "Story of my dating life." Everyone laughed, including Frank, who had once never laughed at anything less financially sound than a good investment opportunity. As they moved on to cake and conversation, real conversation, about hopes and fears and the documentaries Zack was planning next, he reflected on how one small thing, given with the wrong intention but received with the right perspective, had changed everything. Sometimes losing could be winning. Sometimes jokes became blessings. And sometimes, the most valuable tickets weren't the ones that brought you money, but the ones that brought you home to yourself, and to the people who finally saw you for who you really were. The end.